Hey, what's up guys, Paulo Munoz here. Welcome to the third and final video of this introduction to the ZBrush for iPad application. So in the previous two videos I covered kind of like an overview, an introduction, how to customize and tweak some of the preferences for the application so that you can work more efficiently all within the iPad. But in this video we're going to actually start creating something. So I'm going to walk you through roughly what I would do to block something out, like a quick sketch of a creature or something like that. So it's going to be very, very simple, but hopefully the idea is to show you that you can do everything within the iPad, and that's the beauty of it. So let's go ahead and jump straight into it. Alright, so let's go ahead and start with the ZBrush for iPad. Just as a reminder, I'm using the iPad Pro 13-inch, so this is the larger screen. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and start the project like this, in this mode. But once I cover kind of like the basics, kind of like showing you where to tap or where to click, I'm going to switch to this view that doesn't show the hands or anything, but it's going to be a little bit clearer so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so let's go ahead and start with this. And I'm going to go ahead and tap on New Sculpt. And I'm going to start with a simple sphere. I mean, there's other options in here, but I'm just going to start with the simple stuff. So a simple sphere. There we go. We have already the material. Everything else is good to go. I like to turn off the floor. And just so that we can block out things quickly, I'm going to turn off the perspective as well. And I'm going to bring in my subtool list. All right, so from the subtool list, I don't really need any of this stuff right here. So I can just go ahead and maybe open it up so that we have, multiple subtools, or it's going to be easier to reach this point. Now, in previous videos, I showed that you can quickly customize the little floating bar. So if you want to, you can just tap here. And that way, tap and drag, and that way it appears in here. And this allows you to kind of like customize it even further. So let's say if you want something smaller, we can leave it like that. So you can access them from here. This is the full palette, or you can access from here. All right, so now that we have this, let's go ahead and create a new one. So I'm going to click on this icon right here. That's to append or to insert. So you can append or insert. And just like in the PC version, the insert or the append action, it just really depends on the placement that you want to add the new piece to. So if you click on insert, it's just going to be right below whatever you have selected. So just below this one. In this case, I only have one, but that's what the insert does. And the append does exactly the same thing, but it pushes whatever you add to the bottom of the subtool list. And this is something that I want to mention, because if you pay attention to the icons, again, I'll switch to the other monitor, but let's see if you can see that. The icons kind of like tell you what to do, or like what it's going to do. So the insert, just put it right below, and append just at the bottom. So I think those are the tiny little things that I find really nice for the iPad. It kind of like makes sense. So I'm just gonna, doesn't matter in this case, I'm gonna add a cylinder. So now we have the cylinder. We can go ahead and switch to the cylinder by holding the Alt and click, or like this modifier and then click, or you can just select it from here. It doesn't matter. And now that we have this, I'm gonna enable symmetry. Oh, it's already enable, and I'm going to bring in the gizmo, and let's go ahead and play with maybe the rotation. So I'm going to rotate it like so, push it, and I think I'm going to, let's just create a quick sort of, I don't know, a creature. So this could be the neck of that creature. I've just been doing this quite a bit when I was testing the iPad, or like the ZBrush for iPad. So let's go for something like that. All right, and to show you another action, instead of creating a new subtool, I can just go ahead and click on these three dots. And I can go ahead and duplicate. So now we have another cylinder. And this cylinder, by the way, another cool thing you can do is, if you have I turned it off. I showed you how to do it in the previous video. But if you go to UI, you can turn on the cam view or the thumbnail. I'm going to leave the cam view just so I can show you what I wanted to show you, which is basically you can tap on these corners, and that sort of like changes the view and sends you in a side view or front view or top view straight away. Again, you can do it with these little arrows, or you can just start rotating and hold the shift key, or like the shift modifier, and it's the same thing as in the PC. So now that I'm in here, let's go ahead and move this out of the way. So let's place that around here. This could be kind of like maybe the jaw of the creature. And I think that'll be good enough. All right. Maybe let's bring in the gizmo, scale it on the x-axis, not that one. All right, and another thing that I wanted to show you that works quite well are the modifiers of the gizmo. So let's collapse this one for a second. So if you want to have maybe something that has a bit of tapering, so it's not perfect in here, just for the sake of them, again, doesn't really matter. I'm going to bring in the gizmo here. I'm going to tap on the gear icon, and that brings this new transform type. And these are all your modifiers, all the good stuff that you can have as well in ZBrush for the PC. So I'm going to go for taper, which it's not in here. should be here we go at the bottom. You can click and drag as well. So I'm going to click on taper, and then you have the same manipulators that you have in the PC. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe push this one down a bit and maybe change a little bit of the profile. I'm trying to allow space for you so you can see what I'm doing, but generally speaking, when I'm working in, let's say, in the couch or whatever, I just have the iPad like this, and I just have my thumb like roughly around here, so I can do all of these things from here. You know, it's more comfortable, but just so you know what I'm doing, I'll do it like that. So yeah, let's move that like so. Click on the gear icon, and then you can reset, you can full reset, you can delete, accept, all that good stuff. Click on accept, so now we have that taper. All right, so pretty basic stuff. Now let's go ahead and do something else for the for this head or for the sphere. So Alt, tap on the sphere. Again, I can rotate around and then hold Shift. Right? And I'm going to show you something that I showed you in previous videos, which is that I can access my clipping or selection brushes by tapping the Control and then drag to the Shift key. So now we have everything in here. Let's go ahead and use the knife. And again, to use it is the same deal. Front, so Control Shift, and now we can go ahead and do this. Maybe a little bit more. All right, so that's not too bad. And let's go ahead and select the neck here, and let's bring in the gizmo again. Gear icon. I want to use the taper as well, just to add a little bit of taper, like so. Maybe at the back, at the bottom as well. Accept. All right. So we have something pretty simple. But what I'm going to do now is open up my subtool list. I'm going to select on the first one, and I'm going to go to the actions here at the bottom. I'm going to open up the merge, and I'm going to click on merge visible. So by clicking merge visible, nothing happens in here. You have to go to the tools, and you can click on the tool and switch to another active tool. So this is something that in ZBrush, the PC version, you will see kind of like a bunch of the tools that you're using in the tool palette, or any tool that is associated with your project. In this case, you need to click on this one to select the tool that is being generated. So in this case, we have 3 subtools, which is what we have here. But then we just use the merge visible. So it's going to take all those 3 and create this new tool. So I'm going to click on that one, and you'll see it's basically switching between the different tools. So this is how you access those tools. All right, so let's go ahead and collapse this. And I'm going to turn this one into a Dynamesh. But before that, I'm going to show you that you can use something like the Remesh by Union. So let's bring in the gizmo, and let's click on the gear icon, and let's go for Remesh by Union, this one right here. All right, so let's accept. All right, so as you can see, it works exactly in the same way. So now this is a watertight mesh. So that means that if I bring my selection tools, again, let's switch to select rectangular, and maybe from this angle, I'm going to do that. When I rotate around, I just hit some of the mesh, but you cannot see inside because now it is a single-sided. And this is the reason why I have some custom palettes, because this is an action. This is something that I do often. So I'm going to press my quick menu. Let's put it here on the right-hand side. And I'm going to flick through till the end, which I have the double here. So I'm going to click on double, and now you can see that. So again, this is part of the tool palette. So if you want to bring that up, you can click on the palettes here. You can go to the visibility. Sorry, not visibility, at the bottom, display properties here, and this is the double that I just added. So I customize my quick menu to add this one in there because, again, it's something that I use often. All right, so let's bring back the rest. And I just wanted to show you, I forgot to show you that. The whole point is that the Remesh by Union, you see, it just removes any geometry inside. So now this is a watertight mesh that has all of these pieces kind of like unified. All right, but that's not necessarily what I want. I just want to show you that it works. If you're familiar with this sort of workflow, you can totally do it in the iPad. I'm going to go ahead and click on this icon, and that's going to be my Dynamesh. And by default, I mean, it's not too bad. I think we can work with that, but I'm going to start with something a bit lower. So what we can do is click and hold, and that allows you to bring in the settings for Dynamesh, so you can, change all of the stuff from this before you Dynamesh. So I'm going to reduce the resolution a tiny bit more. Click on Dynamesh, and this is better, I think, for just to do a little bit of sketching. And now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and use my move brush. So this is the normal move brush. Again, this is the action, 3 fingers to slide up and down to increase your brush size. So if you pay attention here to my brush cursor, I can do this and increase my brush. So again, 3 fingers, that's how you increase the brush. So I'm going to go for something larger, and I can start adjusting. Now, I forgot to turn on symmetry. Not a problem. I have my mirror and weld in my custom menu, so I just need to go to the first one, or to my first custom menu, which is again something that I use all the time. So I'm going to do mirror and weld. So now it is on the other side, and let's turn on symmetry. So now whatever I do happens symmetrically. All right, perfect. So I think we're getting there. I mean, this is super basic, but I just want to show you that in general, the workflows and the tools that you would use in the PC version are also available here for you to play around with. I'm going to smooth everything out a little bit more. And if I want to polish something, let's go ahead and bring in my custom menu. I'm going to polish things. Again, this is something that is part of the deformation palette. So now I have something a little bit cleaner to continue the sketching process. All right, so another thing that I like is when I'm blocking something like this, I like to enable the AccuCurve, and that gives me a very pointy effect for the move brush, like so. Well, this is not AccuCurve, but this is what the move brush does. So in my custom menu, if I go to the end, which I have anything that is related to brushes stuff, I'm going to enable AccuCurve, and that way, whenever I pull, you'll see it gives you a much more pointy effect, right? Again, if you want to find out where that is, you can go to the palettes, go back here, and select the brush palette, and here is the AccuCurve under the curve. Or the alternative way to access that would be to click directly on the brush palette here on the left-hand side, and then you click on the top here in this icon, which are the settings of that brush palette, and that way you can do the same thing in here. So multiple ways of doing the same thing. But now that I have this, all I'm going to do is spend some time just adjusting the general shapes of this one. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time. It's not going to be a perfect sketch. I just want to show you the general workflow and the tools. But yeah, it's not gonna be great, I don't think. And one more thing I want to show you is that you can also hold the Alt key and move things based on the camera or the normal of the polygons. So if you click on this point right here, it's only going to allow you to move it, let's say, to the sides or up and down. But if you hold the Alt key, just like in the PC version, you will be able to push that one towards the camera or like towards the normal of the polygon. So this is something that I use all the time. When I'm setting things up like this, I can hold the Alt key and I can sort of push this and maybe create kind of like the orbit of the eye if this guy has like some eyes or something. Maybe the same thing for the nose. So I use this all the time. But yeah, so you kind of like get what I mean. I'm gonna smooth that out a little bit, and that's one of the ideas in general of working with low resolution or like just a few polygons, so that I can smooth things quickly and adjust things very, very quickly. All right, so a couple more things before I jump into the other view so that you can see things a little bit better. I'm going to be switching between some of the brushes, not here, but the ones in here. So these are all my custom brushes. Well, not all of them, but most of these brushes are custom. So for instance, I'm going to be using this clay buildup or the clean buildup, which allows you to, it's like the clay buildup brush, but you see it has a smoother transition, doesn't have a strong alpha. And sometimes I prefer to use this one. All right, so that is basically it. So let's go back. I'm going to select my move brush. That's what I was using before. And yeah, let's go ahead and add a couple more spheres just for the eyes. And then the rest, we can just pull it and use the Dynamesh. So let's go to the subtools. Let's click on new one. So I'm going to click on append sphere, select that sphere, bring in the gizmo. Let's go ahead and push this like so. It's going to have like some big eyes. And again, because I have my custom menu, I'm just going to go to, the first custom menu and click on mirror and weld. I just want to make sure I accidentally moved the Dynamesh resolution. All right, so now we have that in there. I'm going to also press this icon so that is right in the center, and then enable symmetry just in case. And let's go ahead and go back to the head. All right, so let's go ahead and switch to the full monitor so you can see things a little bit better, and then I can also work in a much comfortable position, just holding the iPad like I mentioned before. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to increase the Dynamesh resolution a tiny bit, maybe to double. So I had it in 40 something, now it's 84. Control, click and drag, and that increases that a little bit. And I'm going to use something like one of my custom brushes. I'm going to go for the HR Geiger Cotta. So this is super strong. And in fact, it is a bit too strong. So I'm going to click on the C sub and I'm going to reduce it a tiny bit. There we go. Maybe not that much. All right, so undo that. Just tapping twice on the canvas. And what I'll do with this one is kind of like mark certain areas. So I can just do very quickly something like this. I'm also going to hold the Alt key to push things the other way around, like so. So something for maybe these areas right here, and maybe something for the mouth and the nostrils. Maybe some kind of like total or something. All right, so these are just quick sketch marks. They're not details or anything. They just kind of like help me determine the I don't know, some visual points so that I can work out the rest of the sketch. All right, as simple as that. Now I'm going to switch to another custom brush, which is this standard strong, right? It's just basically a stronger version of the standard brush. And I'm going to use kind of like the same technique. So I'm just going to push things to generate some volume quickly. Again, very sketchy, nothing to do with details yet. I'm just trying to figure out where the transition of the volumes would happen. And I'm trying to kind of like give you the general workflow that I would use for something like this. Let's reduce the brush size. Again, 3 fingers, tap and slide. So are going to be some thick eyelids at the bottom. And let's figure out the mouth first. All right, I think that's fine. So again, very, very basic stuff, very simple. But now that I have this, even though it's all wobbly and not great, at least have a rough idea of the things that I want to achieve. So I'm starting to get an idea of what this guy looked like in my head. So let's switch back to the move brush. And with a larger brush size, I still have AccuCurve enabled. I'm going to start pulling a bit larger than that. Just adjusting kind of like the skull at the back, figuring out the neck a little bit more. Make sure that this jaw is a bit more interesting, less square. And also play around with the proportions. That's, for me, it's one of the biggest things that when I'm trying to, design something new and I want to make sure that it's a character that is appealing, I either go for contrast, something that is going to be, visually is going to have a lot of a contrast. And one of the ways that you can achieve that contrast is by creating variations in the proportions. So there's a lot of contrast between where, the spaces and the areas where you place certain features of the face and so on. All right, let's go ahead and keep this simple. All right, so I have again a rough idea. Let's go ahead and hold the Dynamesh button here, increase the resolution a bit more, control, click and drag to increase that. I'm also going to bring in my custom palette and I'm going to go for polish, just to polish things maybe a bit more. There we go. And now we have like 1 million polygons. So if you look at the top left around here, that's where where you can see the active polygons. So 1 million polygons to sketch out. It might be a little bit too much, but it's still fun. So now I can switch to something like my clean builder brush with a smaller brush size. And I can start figuring this out by filling up these areas. And yeah, I'm just gonna try to keep the brush size large. All right, so maybe adding some muscles here for the jaw. I'm also gonna press the Shift key to smooth this out. And I think this, at this resolution, I should have changed that. So let me go back in here. I wanna reduce it a tiny bit because I think it is too much. We're still sort of sketching things out. Yeah, so that way the smooth brush, it's a little bit faster. However, if you want to stick with like larger resolutions and you're just happy sketching things out, like I'm doing right now, you can change the brush, like the smooth brush, to be the smooth stronger. So just to let you know how you do that, you can hold the Shift key. Again, you access all your brushes here. And the smooth stronger is actually this one, the second one that has a little flex arm. So that is pretty cool. So again, this one is a lot stronger. So what I like to do is I like to hold the Shift key, click on the Z add, and then reduce that a little bit so that it is still the strong one, but it allows me to have a bit more control with the pressure on my pen. So I can still smooth. If I press really hard, I can smooth everything. But if I just press slightly, it's not going to be as intense. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds, I would say. All right, let's go ahead and get here and let's start figuring this out. I'm also going to tap with 4 fingers. And that accesses my solo mode, which is also at the bottom right corner of this interface. And I'm just going to use my smooth brush and let's reduce the brush size. So you see all these actions of changing brush size, changing, I don't know, the pressure, going into solo mode, switching between subtools. It becomes almost, second nature once you get familiar with this. So I would say the most important thing is, when you're transitioning from the ZBrush for the PC to the iPad, is to spend some time making sure that whatever you do on the PC version, or at least the controllers or the buttons that you use often, are in an easy place to reach within the UI here in the iPad, and then just spend some time getting used to not having to click anywhere else, like a keyboard or a set of shortcuts or anything like that. So I think it's just a matter of like anything, just getting used to it. And I think it's ultimately is very intuitive. So it didn't take me too long to sort of get into the habit of pressing the right buttons in the iPad. All right, so let's go ahead and get out of solo mode. I'm gonna go back into my move brush, and I'm gonna start bringing this closer. This sketch is not it's not great, but it sort of gives you the idea. I'll probably share some of the time lapses that I've done for the other sketches, or maybe I'll just bring up one of the other ones that I've already done in the iPad, so that we can play around with some details and stuff like that, so that I don't subject you to the whole process in here. I'm gonna bring in my Geiger brush again, smaller brush size, and now I'm just gonna cut through, maybe smaller than that, cut through here, just to define the mouth area. And again, not necessarily details, more like markings to define maybe like secondary shapes, some folds. I'm gonna sharpen up the eyelid here at the top. Maybe we can do that with another brush. And let's use something maybe like the clay tubes. That's gonna give you a very sharp effect here for the mouth. And then smooth that out. All right, and you get the idea. Let's go ahead and switch to maybe the clay brush. I just want to show you that all the brushes, like in the PC version, they work totally fine. The effect is exactly the same thing. All right, I'm going to use my custom one. Again, just helps me build volumes a little bit faster. This clean, clean builder brush, and it just doesn't have that sort of really strong alpha, but you still can do very, very sketchy stuff with this one. By the way, this brush is free on the ZBrush guide, so you can just go there and go to the generally sculpting brushes or general sculpting brushes. That's kind of like a section that is only for brushes that you can use for general sculpting. That's what the name is for, and you can just download that one and bring it into ZBrush for iPad, which is pretty cool. And if you're interested in the other brushes like the Geiger cutter, the standard stronger, and things like that, those are part of some of the packs that I have online. But I want to show you as well that you can totally use those custom brushes. All right. I know I said that I wasn't going to spend too much time, but this is the problem with ZBrush for me, that as soon as I get going with it, I just need to trust the process, and little by little things start to cling together, and I start to see something a bit more interesting, so I just need to spend the time. So from what I had like maybe a minute ago, this is very different. Even though it is very, very sketchy, I'm still, I still need to work on the polishing of the surface. The volume transitions and the general shapes of the face, for example, are starting to look a lot better. Even though, like I said, this is still pretty rubbish. Let's figure out this eyelid here. This is bothering me. I'm going to use the standard, the standard brush to cut in there. And I'm going to go back to my clean builder brush. So this is the one that I'm saying that is free on the ZBrush guides. So you can grab that one. So let's change the intensity a bit. All right, I'm going to switch to my move brush again. Larger brush size. I'm going to do some slightly larger proportional changes in here. You know what? Maybe this guy doesn't have that much of a skull. Maybe it's like a bit of a brute creature. All right. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one, like I said, but I do want to show you a couple more things. So let's say if you want to do some ears, you can totally go for the IMM brushes. So I'm going to click on this brush. You can, like I said, do insert brushes, or I don't know. I just want to show like different processes really. So let's say insert meshes. So in the insert brush meshes, I'm gonna go for the IMM parts, and this one has some ears. So I'm gonna click on that ear, and I'm gonna click and drag. You see we have that ear. Maybe it's like a tiny ear. There we go. I'm gonna bring in my 3D gizmo and push it like so. There we go. And I think that's all I need from this brush. So I'm gonna switch back to the move one. And because everything is masked, just like in the PC version, I will be able to adjust a few things before committing. actually going to use the inflate brush to add it, like a cauliflower brush, one of those like wrestlers ears. All right, and then control click and drag to clear the mask, control click and drag to integrate that with the rest. And now let's go ahead and play with the transitions. I'm going to use again the clay brush. So you see, that's pretty easy and pretty quick. So this is the type of things that I've been playing around with. Again, very sketchy stuff, but as you can see, you can use all sorts of processes just like you use them in the full version of ZBrush for the computer. All right, so let's go ahead and again, this is very sketchy, but just to show you kind of like the complete workflow, let's go ahead and bring in the custom UI. Again, I show you that these custom things in the previous video and the reason why I set it this way. So you see we have the Dynamesh options in here. And then if I scroll down, now we have the series measure. So I'm going to use the project history to recover the details that I have here, and I'll show you how that is done. So before I do the series measure, let's go ahead and click on the top right corner here on the history. And I'm going to click on one point in here, and that saves this current state of the mesh. Let's bring back the custom menu again. And I'm going to use, 5 is perfect. 5,000 polygons is perfect. I'm going to click on series measure. And that is going to go through the process of remeshing the entire, head or sketch. All right, so that did a pretty good job. Let's go ahead and enable polyframe. And as you can see, it is a pretty decent topology. So again, we have already stored that point in the timeline. So bring back the custom menu. So the next kind of like step in the workflow would be to reproject or to subdivide and then reproject. So if we keep scrolling down a bit, we can do the dynamic subdivision. In this case, that's not applicable for what I need to do. So let's keep going a little bit lower. I'm going to divide this maybe 4 times. So 4 times gives me about 780,000 points. I'm just looking at the active points at the top left. So actually 764,000. So that gives me 4 subdivision levels. Now let's keep scrolling down, and this is where I have the project history or the project all. Now the difference is that with the project all, you need to have a separate subtool. I still use that process. I think it's very, very good and very reliable, but the project history also works really well. So now that I have stored something in my history, I'm going to click on project history, and that is going to basically take the stored sketch and it's going to project it into the nice geometry. That's all. So that is the reason why I have in my custom menu too all of these steps in kind of like a sequential way. So I have the Dynamesh first to do the sketch, then I have the series measure to improve the quality of the topology. Then if I want to use dynamic, I can do that, or I can subdivide it, and finally I can just go ahead and project, either project history or project. So that's it. So if I turn off polyframe, you see this is still the projection of the sketch, but difference is that if I go down in subdivision levels, let's go ahead and go back in here to the main default UI. I can go ahead and click on the icon for subdivision, so this one right here, and I can just move up and down. So again, I can now start working on proportional changes and things with what I was doing before with the move brush to maybe adjust things like the proportions of the face, maybe change a little bit of the expression, and that obviously makes it a lot easier because I'm just dealing with fewer polygons, so starting to look a bit more interesting. And then when I want to add some details, I just go to the higher subdivision level, right? And then, this is still very sketchy. So what I can do is I can hold the shift key and I can smooth things out a little bit, right? And I start, this is how I start to sort of polish the sketch. But anyway, I'm not going to spend too much time. Like I said, I just want to show you a few more things. I want to remove that point. Hopefully you can see it at the top right corner. I'm going to remove that point from the timeline. So I'm just going to click once and click twice again. So the first click sort of creates a new point, removing the previous one. And the second time that you click on it, it just removes any point that you have. So that's it. So now I don't have any reference to that sketch anymore. Just to show you that you can use some of the custom brushes, for instance, I'm going to use, let's go for this one right here. So this is the lip detailer, and this is a brush that I have from a pack that is just for skin details. And I'm just going to use that to quickly create. Again, this is not necessarily what I would do, but just in an effort to save some time, I'm gonna skip some of the definition of the secondary forms and then just go straight into this sort of. I would say this still is secondary, but It's just so that you can see that you can still use these detailing brushes in the ZBrush for iPad. One more thing that I would say is when I'm using something like this, I prefer to change the smooth brush to the smooth peaks. So if I hold the Shift key, I'm going to actually change, I'll show you which one it is in here. So let's go for where the smooth brushes in here. So the smooth peaks is this one right here. So the one at the bottom. So I'm going to click on that one. And actually, I'm going to tap and hold. And I'm going to add to favorites so that I always have it here at the top in my favorites. So I'm going to select that one. And that becomes my active brush. So when I press the Shift key, is now the smooth peaks. So and also I'm going to reduce the intensity a tiny bit. Basically, the idea is that with this brush, you can smooth everything while preserving some of those crevices and details that I'm just adding. All right, I'm going to show you another one. So I think I have it here in my custom UI. Let's go for user. Let's use this cliff. And that's another brush from a pack for rocks. And I'm just going to show you that this is kind of like the effect that you get, right? So maybe this guy has like some kind of like really rough skin and it transitions into the flesh here at the bottom. So I'm going to do this very quickly. And although I'm just trying to give you an idea of the general workflow, do not do this. It's better to, it's much better to establish the main forms first and make sure that the secondary forms are, solid and everything in terms of the silhouette is reading well before you even think about doing details. So, this is not necessarily what I would do. I just want to show you that in general, the process is exactly the same as I would do in the PC, but I'm just skipping ahead some stages really. I'm going to bring in the lip detailer with a larger brush size, and I'm going to use that one as a way to create a couple of folds and wrinkles here for the neck. And I'm going to play by varying the size of that brush every now and again, just to change the result. All right. And once I have these, details there, I can also go with maybe the Geiger brush, and I'm going to reduce the intensity and the brush size. Actually, before I do that, let me just add a couple more details here so that it's not weird. All right. And now I can go with the brush that I was mentioning, and I can just go ahead and start clipping or increasing the contrast of these details in a way. I want to increase the C intensity. There we go. Maybe not that much. So even though this is not the ideal way of doing things, what I'm trying to do is kind of like take advantage of some of the almost random details that the detailing brushes gave me, and I'm trying to refine those to create those sort of like secondary shapes, or add a little bit of contrast. I'm going to use a standard Geiger standard, so this is a pretty strong one, but it's going to add a little bit of volume like the standard brush does, a bit faster. All right, so not a great sketch, but hopefully you can see how how comfortable you can get sculpting and detailing just as a quick sketching session. Now, because I know this being a long video already, what I'll do is I'm going to switch to another of the sketches. I'm not going to save this random stuff, and I'm going to go to my sculpts, and I'm going to go to projects. This is what I have here, and let's go ahead and load up. I don't know. Let's load up this guy here. All right. So this is something that I did entirely on the iPad as well, like the other sketches. So you can see, if you spend a little bit more time, like I did on this guy, you can totally create something that, even though it's very sketchy, you can still see some of the, the transitions and stuff. If you spend some time and you block out the primary and the secondary shapes better, then you have a much better chance to polish something that looks much more interesting and, more. Not only more interesting, but actually a lot better in terms of the visuals and more professional, I would say. All right, so the only reason I loaded this one is because I want to show you kind of like the next step of the process if you want to add any type of high frequency details. So in my case, I just want to keep it simple, and I'm going to use another brush from the skin pack. So I'm going to show you what this does. Hopefully you can see it. I'm going to get closer here at the top. So it just adds a little bit of bumpiness, but you can sort of control the flow of it. And remember, if I press the Shift key, I still have my smooth peaks, so I can smooth this. and that creates a nice pattern for the skin. So again, this is another custom brush from the skin pack set of brushes, but you can create something very similar just with the standard brush and changing the way that the alpha is applied. I'll show you in a second. I just want to cover some of these areas, and then I'll show you something else. All right, so I guess the trick here, or the trick in terms of the workflow is you apply these details and then you use the smooth peaks that is going to preserve those crevices a lot more, but is going to smooth out the surface. So that creates the really nice, subtle, bumpy, that sort of bumpy surface. All right, so you get the idea, right? You can create a very similar brush. Let me just show you how you can do that. I'm gonna go ahead and select my standard brush. Let's click on the brush palette right here. I'm gonna click on these 3 icons, and I'm gonna click on reset current brush just in case, because I think I moved some stuff. And now let's go ahead and change the stroke. So the stroke is gonna be the spray, and then let's change the alpha, or add an alpha, and go for alpha 8. So those 2 changes very quickly, that can give you a very similar result. So let's go ahead and do that here at the back. You see, this is kind of like what I was trying to achieve. The only thing is that I want to reduce the Z-add quite a bit, because that is pretty intense. Not that much, a bit more than that. So there you have it. You can customize your brushes straight from the ZBrush for iPad. As you can see, it's pretty easy. And then I'm going to use the smooth peaks to soften that transition, and then you start to get that sort of like nice bumpy surface for the skin, right? Really cool stuff. All right, now the other thing, just to wrap up this video, is to add a bit of polypaint just to show you that it is exactly the same thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch to a different material. So these are my favorites. I'm gonna click on Skin Shade 4. This is usually the material that I use to add polypaint. And I'm gonna go to a custom brush, because I use this one more often. So the soft polypaint brush is the one that I prefer to use for this. Obviously, this one doesn't have any Z information or any Z intensity, so it's just polypaint. So let's go ahead and click on the color, and I'm going to go ahead and dog that into my floating palette here. And let's go ahead and go for, I don't know, I have a feeling that this guy would be kind of like a blue guy. All right, so I'm going to click on Fill Object. That fills the object. And now I'm going to go to the masking palette. So let's go for the masking. Let's go back to palettes. I'm going to go to the tool palette, and let's click on masking. There we go. So we have this. I'm going to collapse the left-hand side with the names, because I don't care about that right now. So I'm going to collapse it by clicking on that top left icon there, and I'm going to push this one up, and I'm also going to move that to my floating window. So now I have my subtools, my color, and my tool or my masking tools in here. So in the masking tool, let's go ahead and scroll down to the bottom, and I'm going to click on Mask by Ambient Occlusion. I'm going to click on Mask Ambient Occlusion. All right, so that creates a mask based on the ambient occlusion. Let's go ahead and collapse that, and hopefully you can see it, but I'm going to hold the Control key and click once on the canvas. That is going to invert that mask. And if I go back to the masking one, let's click on View Mask, so it hides the mask. And let's go back to the color. I'm going to click on the eyedropper in case, just in case I change the color, but I haven't. I can select something like this. And then let's go for something darker, a bit more bluish. And I'm going to fill the object a few times. So you see, it is targeting that area of the ambient occlusion. So I usually start with this. I think it's an easy and simple way of getting something going. And now with the soft brush, I'm going to increase the brush size quite a bit. And then I can start, refining that. So let's clear the mask, by the way. Click and drag. So I'm going to target some darker areas with blue. And this is why I start with this brush, because it is a large brush and it's very, very soft. So it allows me to establish kind of like the highlights, if you will, of the skin of this creature. All right, so the next thing would be maybe some kind of like greenish or yellowish tone, a bit more desaturated. And I'm going to target some other areas. And for that, I'm going to click on the mask again. And let's go for something slightly different. Let's go ahead and try a different type of masking. So let's go for a masking by smoothness, for example. Let's click on Mask by Smoothness. And again, that is going to mask out some areas based on how smooth they are. Maybe this is not going to be the best. Let's go for Peaks and Valleys. Let's try that one. All right, so that creates a nice pattern. And obviously, you can change the range and the coverage as well, just to generate different patterns. And now, let's go back in here at the top. And I'm going to blur the mask. And let's do it again. Blur mask a couple of times. Let's invert it and blur it again. All right, and now we can hide it. And exactly the same way, I'm just gonna add this sort of yellowish tone in these areas. Maybe some kind of like some kind of falls where the sun usually doesn't hit the skin and is not as tan in a way. All right, so that's a very simple way to get started with a color palette. Let's go ahead and hold Control, click and drag, and I'm gonna switch to the. Actually, let's use this brush and change the way that it applies the color. So I'm gonna change the stroke to the spray, and I'm gonna also reduce this color variation and the placement as well, so it's not as intense. And the flow, I'm gonna reduce that as well. And then for the alpha, let's add the alpha 08. Cool. So let's bring in the color, and this time I'm gonna use maybe something like a reddish tone like that. And with a smaller brush size, let's go ahead and start adding some areas with this tone, right? So very subtle stuff, but this sort of like starts to integrate everything a little bit. And let's go ahead and use a bright red, oh sorry, not bright red, bright green towards the, maybe a little bit darker towards the edges of the composition, and that sort of helps me frame, you know, even though it's a sketch or just a head, it sort of like helps framing it, and it is visually more self-contained in a way. I try to treat each character or each concept that I do as a composition itself, even though, you know, at the end of the day, depending on how you present it and how you frame the camera, that's gonna change the way that the composition is read. But as a character design, I like to treat it as a composition. So these things that I'm adding here, so it's like a darker, more saturated green towards the edges. Even though it goes with the skin, it sort of helps me, frame the rest of the details. So you see, very simple stuff. All right, just to wrap it up and show you something else, we can go ahead and click on another masking feature, which is the mask by cavity. I use this all the time. I'm gonna click on mask by cavity, and I'm gonna increase the intensity because that's not very obvious. I'm gonna push it to 100. There we go. All right, so that's a little bit better. I'm also gonna change the profile cavity, and that is how fast it goes from a mask to an unmasked area. So I'm gonna reduce that intensity a little bit. And let's click on done, and let's click on, let's do it again. So Control, click and drag to delete or remove the mask by cavity. So this is the result of the mask by cavity, but let's go ahead here at the top. I'm gonna blur the mask a tiny bit. Let's hold Control, click and invert it, and let's blur it again. There we go. And I'm gonna hide it. So now that I have that, I'm gonna use maybe a deep purple type of color. I don't know, I'm just going for these random colors sometimes, but I'm gonna press slightly harder. Maybe this is too saturated. Let's go back and hide that. I'm gonna go for more of my magenta, more desaturated. I think this will work. All right, so I'm just gonna press softly all around the character, and that sort of gives me that sense of depth in the skin, just because we are targeting just the cavities. It's similar to the thing that I did at the beginning with the ambient occlusion, but obviously targeting more like the details and the cavities of it. All right, and you might think, okay, this is just getting a little bit out of hand in terms of the color, but this is usually what I do. I just do a pass to generate variation in the, I would say the albedo color, let's say in the, in just the base color. And then I use a general, similar color to what I have here, like an average hue to combine and to integrate everything. So maybe we can use something, maybe like a yellowish tone, like this. And let's go ahead and clear the mask. And maybe we can reduce the brush size and just press softly to integrate things a little bit. Maybe something like this green. All right, so I'm just going now over everything. There's no mask or anything. It's just a simple color that goes over everything just to integrate the other colors. And that's the workflow. All right, once I've done that, I maybe go with another color, maybe like a red or pink hue for certain areas, and then just to highlight the fact that there might be more blood vessels around the eyes and around the nose. So it just potentially be a little bit more like, pale, or the concentration of the subsurface scattering in a render would be higher towards these areas. All right, but I think you get the idea. I could spend, hours and hours working on this, but the fact that it's all in the iPad, I don't have to rely on anything else. It's absolutely fantastic. So hopefully this has been of help. I'm going to go ahead and save this one just as another version to show you how you do that. I'm going to tap and hold the save button, and I'm going to click on save next. So that is going to save the next tool, but I haven't actually saved this as a tool, so there's no next that it could save. So let's do that first. I'm going to go ahead and save it as, I'm going to type green dude 1, save. And then now if I want to save as the second one, I can hold and click on save next. So you see that now it doesn't ask me for the file name. It just saves, well, in this case, it did it 1001. I should have just named it 000, and that's it. But, you know, if I go back into the home and I go back to my tools, I have it in here. And one thing that is really cool is that it doesn't show all the tools in one place. You can just tap into this number 2, and that brings in the different versions of that specific tool. So it's kind of like another level of control, or in terms of organization, which I think is pretty nice. In the Z projects, that's not going to be in there because I didn't save it as a Z project. I save it as a C tool. So again, in the C tools, click on the 2, and then I have access to 0001, which is actually number 2 and 1. So yeah, that's how you do it. This is generally speaking what I would do to create something from scratch on the iPad. So hopefully this video has been of help. If you have any questions at all, feel free to drop them in the comment or tag me in social media at Pablanda. And if you have any questions, yeah, just reach out. If I have the time, I'm always happy to help if I can provide an answer. So I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.